All right, folks, today we are talking about the object superclass. So if you remember back to a few lessons ago, we discussed how the object class is secretly superclass for absolutely every single class in Java. Even when we don't declare it as such, like if in our person class, we didn't say that it is extending anything. However, it secretly is extending that object class. Every class in Java is going to inherit from the object class either directly or indirectly through some chain of inheritance. But all classes in Java are going to make use of the object class. And this class is part of the built-in java.length package. We don't need to import it. We don't need to do anything with it. It's already part of base Java. So that's just a little bit of additional information that is helpful to know. So the object class contains about 11 methods that are inherited by other classes. However, there are two primary ones that we're going to focus on today: the Boolean equals method and the string toString method. We have worked with both of these methods before. We've at least discussed how to implement them within our own classes. But something that we haven't realized is that we're overwriting the original versions of those methods. So both of these methods can do something when they're called by another class, although generally we're going to overwrite them, and we'll look at why. So the equals method is used to compare two objects against one another. Just like we've talked about in the past, we use this method to compare whether two different actual objects, whether they're of the object class or they're the string class or whatever class we create, we want to compare if they're the same as each other. So here I say object obj1 equals new object obj2 equals new object, and then I'm going to print obj1 dot equals obj2. In this example, we're actually not going to get true. We're going to get false because they are each represented by a distinct object. Those are not going to be the same object. So this method will return true if obj1 and obj2 are represented by the exact same object, and it will return false otherwise. So here, since they are both a new object, they are both going to give us false. Now, we've covered writing equals methods before, so we should be pretty familiar with how to actually write one. And a good example of where we see the equals method being overridden in base Java is within our string class. We've been working with strings for a while, and we learned that the equals method for strings will return true if all of the characters in the two string objects are identical. So this is slightly different from the original object equals, because I could have two new string objects, but as long as their character sequences match, that will return true, where with two objects, it will return false, no matter, I guess, you can't store any data in a regular object. But I can say string1 equals howdy, string2 equals howdy, and I can print string1 equals string2. In this case, we would get true because howdy and howdy are the same. The other method we're going to talk about is the toString method, which is also very commonly overridden from the object class. The primary function of this method is to return a string-based representation of an object. So if I say object obj1 equals new object, and I try to print my variable obj1, what do we think we're going to see? What kind of value should we see output here? Have you ever tried printing? Oh, I see someone unmuting.
It's usually like a random string of like letters or something.
Exactly. So the default toString for object looks kind of like this. We've got our object type on the left. We've got this @ sign, and then we've got this sequence of numbers and letters. Now, this is not a very useful representation of my object. It tells me what type it is, but not a whole lot beyond that. So this is why we usually override this method. Now, the reason we need this to exist in the first place is because if we tried to print, let's say we had a person object and we hadn't implemented the toString for person, somewhere in our hierarchy, we would need to have a toString method in order for our program to not crash if we tried to print that person object. So having a default toString, even if it doesn't surface very much useful information, makes it so our programs don't crash when we try to print our objects. And we've been implementing toString methods in our classes throughout the majority of the year, not even realizing that we were actually overriding that default version of the method. So like I said, usually we'll override within our person class so that we can print out the person object's name rather than that random sequence of numbers and letters. So if I make a person called person1 equal new person Steve, and I system.out.println person1, that toString method will automatically be called. Java implicitly calls the toString when I print my object, and I will print that value Steve out. So that's our pretty short and sweet lesson for today. Brief recap, our object class is the super secret superclass for every single class in Java. Every class implemented in Java is going to inherit from the object superclass. And two of the most commonly used and overridden methods from this object class are equals and toString. All right, any questions on any of that? All right.